So welcome everyone. My name is James Bennett. I'm the Group Head of Communications here at EveryMatrix. And many thanks for joining us as part of the Safer Gambling Week 2024. And for tuning into this very special panel to discuss what B2B companies such as EveryMatrix can do to improve safer gambling. So EveryMatrix became the first iGaming supplier to receive safer gambling certification from the WLA last year in September. And ever since then, we've been on a journey to ensure that every touch point of our business, both internally and externally across our global customer base, recognises, adheres to, and goes above and beyond when it comes to the importance of sustainable and safer gambling. I'm delighted to be joined today to discuss this in detail by representatives from a Tier 1 operator and a senior compliance professional, an SG consultant, psychologist and counsellor, and a gambling recovery and therapy expert. We couldn't have asked for more, so welcome everyone and thank you for being here today. If you could all kind of briefly just introduce yourselves for a few seconds and then we'll dive straight in. Thank you.
Susanna, come on, you go first.
Okay, I go first. Yes. Hello, I am Susanna Saikkonen from Veikkaus. I'm Vice President Sustainability at Veikkaus, and on my agenda I have our whole ESG agenda, but obviously responsible gaming is the biggest part and most important part. Glad to be here.
Thanks, Susanna. Duncan?
Hi, I'm Doug Ward. I've been in recovery now 17, 18 years. I've spent the last 16, 17 years working in the recovery industry. I'm now consulting after leaving my organisation a few months ago. And my interest really obviously is the recovery side, but it's about the harm minimisation.
Thanks. How about you, Pedro? Good to see you.
Thank you, James. I'm Pedro. I'm the Chief of Safer Gambling Partnerships at BetBlocker, and I'm also a safer gambling consultant and trainer, and I'm also a researcher and a therapist.
Brilliant. And last but not least, I'm going to save the last section to you, Jake, because you're from EveryMatrix.
Of course. So Jake Akiya, Head of Regulatory Compliance for the last 3 years at EveryMatrix. Prior to that, I was the compliance manager in a regulator, the Malta Gaming Authority, and both at the MGA and at EveryMatrix, I had responsibilities in terms of safer gambling.
Brilliant, thank you. So this is really, let's kick off with a question to everyone and start looking a bit more generally at companies that provide back-end software and platforms, games, payment methods like us, like EveryMatrix, and many others. I guess first of all, just to kick off, do you think companies like that have a responsibility to safer gambling? And if so, to what extent? Perhaps I don't know. Perhaps it'd be nice to hear from you, Susanna, as the operator in the room.
Yeah, well, it's clear that operators have the main responsibility as we own the customer base and we have direct contact with the customers and the regulations and in the jurisdictions directly guide us and regulate us. But obviously, I'm really glad that also more and more the discussion is also about B2B. So it's really important that partners can enable and support operators to improve safer gambling, all activities, and they provide features and services that can help us.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. And Duncan, how about yourself?
100%. I think if we just left everything to the operators and everyone else around just sat back and did nothing, I think that would be very unfair. I think there's a bigger issue, and I think it goes bigger than us here. I think it goes into the financial sides as well, the banks and lots of other people. But from this perspective, yes, I do. I think you have the technology, the expertise in the technology to create and think. And I think the other side also really comes into when we talk about black market, about who you sell your products to and what we enforce or what you enforce into those products. So I think it's important to have you as part of this.
Pedro, Jake, your thoughts?
I can jump in on this, and I concur with both Duncan and Susanna. Obviously, the responsibility for B2B is the first and is not as pronounced uh, as much as a B2C, because as Susanna said, the relationship is ultimately between the B2C and their player base. But I also agree that B2B still bears some responsibility, or lots of responsibility, to promote safer gambling concepts, indirectly, of course, through their B2C operator client base. And this can take in various ways, but I would say that the best way at the start would be that whenever a B2B um, develops and publishes a product or a game, there's a safer gambling assessment to identify ways which the product can be abused by persons at risk, and then for the B2B to take appropriate mitigation measures before implementing the final version of the product.
If I may, in my experience, it's because I've worked, for many years in the safer gambling realm. It's great, to see companies like EveryMatrix and other platform providers, to come ahead, and be more engaged in safer gambling. Not too long ago, sometimes, working for BetBlocker, trying to fundraise, or even before, when I used to be the head of gambling therapy, you approach, uh, B2Bs, and you say, hey, can you help us? We're doing this project. And some of them, they were like, oh, but, we don't have anything to do with players. We're only making, online slot machines. So, well, it's quite obvious, that, there's a relation there, or even payment providers. I remember a very long time ago, approaching Skrill, and they were completely, it didn't even cross the mind, that they had some level of responsibility. Of course, it's a little bit different than a company that is interacting directly with customers. But I think this is something that it needs to go at different levels. It's like the chain in sustainability. Okay, it's not only the fast food companies, the one that they are engaged of having, providing a meal that they are not as unhealthy as possible. You need to go up the supply chain. It's also okay, the cheese, better burgers, and trying to make little by little the ecosystem as healthier as possible. So I think we all have a role to play.
Yeah, definitely. And why do you think there's been a change in mindset? Is it something that feels fairly recent? I mean, why are B2B companies now getting involved, I guess?
I think there's two things. I think there's people with a bit more a fresher mindset. They come from different industry or different background, and they do understand, ESG, sustainability, and they say, look, yeah, of course, we're part of this supply chain, and we all need to help. So, slowly but surely we're getting there. But again, like in everywhere, you get people that they are at the front of the queue, and there's other people that they are at the back dragging the feet.
And Jake, maybe you could just give us a few EveryMatrix examples of how we're tackling this, and then it would be nice to hear from the panel about whether you've got any more examples of how B2B companies are approaching this.
So, so I would say that obviously we have a very well-developed training program on safer gambling, which all staff are subject to undergo on an annual basis, and as well as when they join EveryMatrix. But I would say that the best initiative that we have is the development of a safer gambling portal, which we offer for our clients free of charge. And in this portal, there is content, there is training materials and tools which our own operators can adopt and then implement into their safer gambling toolbox. I would invite all our operators to for sure use this portal, because it will only help them become more prepared and ensure a better gambling experience for all, and safer gambling experience for all their players.
Susanna, are you seeing more examples of this kind of thing because you work with several third-party suppliers, or?
No, well, obviously there are some suppliers who offer RG solutions, so that's one end. But I think it's really important that B2B our suppliers can support us and can help achieve our goals in safer gambling. And I would really encourage our suppliers to check and look especially with the bigger operators, because we have quite good responsible gaming, safer gambling programs. So try and find out what are our targets and measures and everything that helps us to achieve those targets and help us to act in a way that we want to do. That everything helps us. So I really would like our suppliers to find out what would help us and how you can support to achieve our goals.
And do you prioritize B2B companies that also prioritize SG? Do you favor them ahead of other suppliers nowadays? Is that mindset also changed? Or?
Well, we are still a public, like a state-owned company, and we are forced to do public tenders, and they have there are limitations in public tenders, what we can include and what not. But what we're trying to do is add more and more overall sustainability criteria to our supply chain. So I guess it's the bigger program of ESG criteria to our suppliers, and obviously then when relevant, RG is part of that.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And perhaps sort of maybe bringing in Duncan and Pedro here, and Jake also chip in here. For many years, B2B companies have not really been involved in safer gambling. I mean, what can we do to encourage more suppliers such as EveryMatrix to get involved in this? How can we incentivize them in some ways, or how can we encourage them?
I think there's a few sides, and I think it actually goes down all the way down to your clients. The word trust, and I've spent so many years now working and talking to gamblers who it's rigged, it's fixed. Actually and going back to Pedro's analogy of a hamburger, I like to know where my food comes from. Actually, I've got the supermarket, great, but actually I want to know that my food came from a farm down the road. And I think there's this same analogy goes through here, that it's in everyone's interest to ensure that RG is there, but the way to do that is to allow people to trust who everyone is in that chain. So I feel that it's essential to keep trust. And actually, I would love to see B2B actually getting out more, talking about how they do and what they do, because we don't hear from you.
Does that mean we need to start talking to players then?
I think
certainly
so.
Communities of players in some way.
Yeah, I think it's education. Education.
Yeah. Pedro, would you add anything to that?
I mean, I think it's some different layers. I think, look, this type of things, is good, for your employees. You work for a, B2B company. You say, okay, we're ethical. We provide products that they are safer than other products. For your customers, like the operator that they say, look, we have products from EveryMatrix, that may be safer than others. Or, for example, when Susanna was talking, okay, for big companies is important, but I think it's also important for small companies. Sometimes the small gambling operators, they may not have the budget, to develop themselves, or it may be difficult, or they have competing priorities. So if you have to implement a new safer gambling tool at the same time that you're implementing a new payment method or a new slot supplier, unfortunately, what happened in the real world is that commercials normally they're going to have some advantage, particularly if it's not a regulatory requirement what you want to do to protect your customers. What happened that if you have a platform that you don't need to develop features, you just say, oh, can we have this? Yes, uh, plug and play or click and it's there. This is something that, particularly for smaller operators, you could compete in terms of, the protection that you offer to your customers, like the biggest one in the market. So I think that's something that, it can benefit, you know, at all levels. Yeah.
And Jake, have you got anything to add, or how do you feel about EveryMatrix maybe getting involved talking to players? I mean, is that something you think we should do? I put you on the spot. I realise this.
No,
I'll come back to Duncan in a minute.
Okay,
I know it's a tricky one, and it's how we get involved with that, isn't it?
I mean, I would not wish for a B2B to be directly engaged with players. Of course, when I say directly engaged, I'm not referring to maybe perhaps research about games, about products. That's fine. But in terms of getting in touch with direct with players, I would prefer, in my opinion, I would prefer not to. You put me on the spot, James. Sorry.
Absolutely, and I think it's a question that no one's really answered ever. I think, Duncan, would you say that's true?
I can understand why Jake wouldn't want to. And maybe, I think if I thought about it more, maybe I wouldn't have suggested talking. But I do think there's an educational side here that definitely needs to happen. I think it goes back to that one thing. It's trusting the whole process. It's trusting the banking system, the financial system. It's trusting the operator. It's trusting the B2Bs. It's trusting the process. But if we don't know what the process is, how can we trust? I think that really, for me, is where it is. So it's educational. How we do that, I don't know the answer.
No, definitely an ongoing one.
I'm going to lend a little hand here to Jay. I think there's ways to talk with the customer. You don't need to be in direct conversation with them. But again, if customers know that, you have a bit of a safer product or whatever, they may see it in an operator, okay, powered by, EveryMatrix or whatever, third party that focus on safer gambling, and that can be a way of reassuring what Duncan was saying. Okay, that games, they get the RTP that they're saying that they're getting, that you have some guarantees, or that any sort of additional features. Again, it would be odd, so if I don't know, James have an account with I don't know, X operator, that you get a provider contacted them. It wouldn't make any sense, and I think probably wouldn't be compliant.
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it, when you're talking about back-end platforms and real technical, software that players probably wouldn't necessarily be interested in or want to understand. But when it maybe is the game side, that's certainly an area we could look into. Moving on to everyone's favorite topic is the black market. It's something, an area that gets talked about all the time. There's been lots of research done lately in the last few years, definitely, with lots of regulators getting involved. Do you think, I mean, with several, do you think that it's a huge issue, or where can we, I guess what I'm trying to get at is what areas do we need to look at here from a B2B point of view?
If I may jump in on this, and I will give a very simple answer. So from EveryMatrix side, we have a policy where we do not sell to B2Cs unless they have the necessary authorizations to offer games in that market. On top of this, and of course, digressing a little bit here, but it's still going to give the same, giving the same push for safer gambling. We're seeing a trend where regulators are pushing, such as Romania and Sweden, where they're making B2Bs legally responsible for ensuring that licensees do not offer content to operators who are targeting those countries illegally. Of course, through this, then we're seeing that black markets in certain jurisdictions is closing down by pushing B2Bs to become more ethical and compliant with the country's regulation.
Okay. Susanna, how about you? Give us your thoughts on the black market and what B2B companies maybe can do to improve the situation.
Yeah, well, the B2B licenses are part of the solution, and when they are relevant. But I guess, to be very frank, it's like B2B partners have to select who they do business with. So do not partner with operators who operate in black markets.
Simple solution. Duncan, I can see you nodding.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree, but I think it goes further. I think it goes to the less regulated areas as well. There's lots of regulators out there or lots of operators that you can't exclude from. You can't even close the account. You can't do anything. Totally legal, just with less regulation. And I think what Jake just said is brilliant, but maybe it's also about actually having a product that is forced through, and you can only have if you agree to these terms. So self-exclusion limits is automatically put on for the less regulated, not just the black market.
Yeah. Pedro, you got any further thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, like the black market, it is a massive issue. For example, BetBlocker, it's a massive help, particularly for black market. What happened? You go like the national self-exclusion, but nowadays, they can be bypassed, very easily with all those crypto casinos, with VPN, etc. For many years, even regulators, they were saying that, oh, these are the operators, crying wolf, to have a less stringent regulator, and even us, raising the voice, we were seen, in a bit of an unkindly way, say, look, this is a real problem. It's very easy, to access operators that they're not in GameStop, operators, that operate with crypto, in any sort of affiliate page. You can find plenty of them, and now on top, it's not just, that they're going to a place where they don't have, safer gambling tools, self-exclusion, or any, guardrails. On top of that, you have operators that they even have fake games with, lower RTPs, that they may look, exactly the same like a branded game, but, the back end, is different. And also in terms of protection, okay, if you get, any jackpot, you don't have any guarantees that you may be able, to claim the prize. So and the worst thing is that the people that they are most vulnerable, are the ones that tend to end up there. So we need to find a way where we all collaborate to try to minimize the effects of the black market. There's no single bullet. This is a collaborative effort. We need to be, charities, operators, B2Bs, payment providers, and everyone trying to, tackle it, because it's very harmful.
Mm-hmm. And you see it is it getting worse because of technology getting so sophisticated?
I believe it's getting worse. So this is something even the regulators now they're admitting. That there's a massive problem. A few years ago, they were, not really, but it's something that you cannot deny it anymore.
Yeah.
regulators
No.
are always playing catch up, so it's expected that they're always 1 step or 2 steps behind on this.
On the other side, as a general rule, we don't really talk about the black market outside of anywhere else. So, we don't want people going to the black market, so we don't talk about it. And maybe that's the wrong way to do it. Maybe we should actually be looking at campaigns where we talk about the black market, about the dangers of the black market. I think there's many people that are possibly on GamStop who now can't gamble inside the UK, end up on a site outside and can't get out of it. But if we actually talks about it more openly and more honestly about it, maybe that can actually do a lot more good. I don't think that's necessarily down to B2B, but I think they could certainly encourage a program to happen along that basis.
When you talk about fake games, maybe B2B suppliers could come together and identify what these fake games are, or then there must be a way of some kind of enlarged B2B involvement in this, I would have thought. But as we kind of move on, do you think, again, a question to all of you, is there any chance that collaboration between B2B, B2C and charities and regulators can create a more unified approach to safer gambling standards across different markets? Maybe Pedro, I'll go to you first on that one.
Unfortunately, I think we're going, like in everywhere, in these times, a bit to a more polarized point. A few years, it was more usual to see, I don't know, like in a safer gambling conference, to see operators, charities, regulators, B2B. I think now we're seeing a little bit more of a polarization. Okay, charities less and less they want to talk to operators. Why? Because they may being seen as biased. So we want to be maybe closer, to the health systems. Regulators, they have their own conference, and they talk to each other. I think we really need to take a step back. It's fantastic that everybody has their own bubble, but we should come together and talk in a more holistic way. I think we all can collaborate in finding solutions. I think when anyone try to solve unilaterally a problem, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah. Duncan, what ways can we bring all these people together?
I'm not so sure about how we can. I think it's why we should. From a technology point of view, you guys have got the answers from there. From an understanding the client perspective, Susanna and the likes would understand her clients. From a treatment provider's point, they will see it very differently. And actually, if you put all of them together, you'll get a very big picture of what the world really looks like, as against to Susanna's view, or your view, or the treatment provider's view. But I agree with Pedro. I think it is becoming polarized, and I think it's getting worse. I think with the regulations, but I do think that this should be an everyone problem, not a single person problem.
Yeah. And if I look at from like EU country point of view, and because EU is having a lot of corporate responsibility regulation, they already have the reporting directive, and as I understood, there will be sectoral standards. They will be adding sectoral standards one by one. So there's a chance that at least something will be included there. It's probably not the best solution. It's probably something that kind of solves all the problem. But I also have to be. I agree with Pedro and Duncan that global standards seem quite far away at the moment. It's like they're so different markets, so different perspectives, and so different point of views from different players. But EU might be having some.
At least that's a positive note then. Because it feels quite bleak at the moment. Jake, give us some positivity.
I have a different opinion actually. So I agree with all of you that B2Bs, B2C, charities, regulators, all stakeholders, they live in their own bubble. And I think there's lack of collaboration, which is at the end of the day the start of a unified approach. But I think in terms of regulations, of course, with caveats, most of the regulators have very similar requirements in terms of safer gambling. Now, in terms of implementation and in terms of compliance, it's another matter. And there are some regulators which are very, very far ahead and very advanced in the way that they implement their check and they request the checks to be implemented and the checks they carry out to ensure that it's compliant, and others they pay lip service but there's no real and actual checks. But I think overall, as I said at the start, if we don't start collaborating as a whole industry together, then we're never going to go through a unified approach for safer gambling standards, which is needed.
I'm going to throw in another grenade, unfortunately, in AI, which is the topic that no one seems to quite understand yet, as it's so new. I mean, I know, Duncan, you mentioned you used AI a lot and you're both kind of positive and wary of it. What kind of ways can we use AI to improve player safety right now?
I think AI is fantastic, and it is. We can either choose to try and ignore it and get left behind, or we can move forward because it's going to happen whether we like it or not. So AI is going to progress at a rapid speed as well. But AI is and does make mistakes. So if we're looking from an SG point of view and a system is flagging up whatever, it needs to be checked. It needs to have that human interaction as well. Otherwise, we're going to run into problems where the machines are taking over. Certainly from the ICO's point of view, where it talks about every decision has to be able to be overridden by a human in the UK. So whether that's applying for a card or applying for a bank account, if the decision is no, it needs to have a human interaction. If we rely on AI too much, where does that leave us? And that's the bit that worries me, where we start having situations that actually could be completely avoidable just by spending a little bit more time being humanistic.
Are you seeing improvements in SG already with the use of AI, or is it something that's still ongoing?
I personally haven't, so I can't really answer that question.
Susanna, perhaps from an operator point of view, are you noticing any differences, any changes?
In using AI or that
AI?
In the
use of AI, through
SG. Well, it's definitely a hot topic. It's been, but it's just getting hotter all the time. And I think the ethical part of the AI usage is really big thing, and we really need to be careful there, and we have to use it wisely, and really not let everything to machines, because it can be used both for commercial and perspectives and improving player safety. And we constantly seek good ways to use AI to improve player safety. Obviously, all these kind of what nowadays most of players are doing, automatic interventions when the machine sniffs risky behavior. And also what we've been trying is training chatbot to have these difficult conversations with customers or this type of stuff. But it's a lot of testing and understanding where is it good and where we still need to have human and manual handling.
Yeah. Identifying black market sites maybe, or looking at things like this. I'm sure it's happening. How about Jake? How are we using AI in EveryMatrix right now? I know there's lots of things going on. So give us a couple of examples.
There's lots of things going on, but I would say presently we're still at the researching phase and exploring the adoption of AI for players into player safety and security. But obviously, I share the room's consensus here that it's a matter of when, not if, AI is adopted by not just by EveryMatrix, by the whole industry, and take it by storm. Actually, on another note, I'm from my previous role, I'm aware of certain AI developments, in language models to as Susanna alluded to, take over much of customer support, for example. But still, I would say that human interaction at the end of the day is still needed at a point in the interaction for sure, at least to qualify the initial risk escalation for a player.
Mhm. Yeah, and this is happening everywhere, isn't it? Even in an area as basic as content, we have to. You can get AI to write content, but ultimately you have to check it. You have to make sure it's accurate and fact check it and everything else. Pedro, have you got any other points on AI? Are you using it?
I think everybody's using, ChatGPT or any type of artificial intelligence these days. I think this is a bit like, I don't know, like Word, back in the day, okay, it's an additional help. I do believe that, it's an additional tool, okay, you may have, you know, uh, artificial intelligence flagging accounts. Look, these accounts have these markers. Have a look, or we have interacted with this customer, but it's not changing the behavior. Could you interact with it? I think it's a bit of a, sort of step approach. Okay, you may have the first level of interaction with a bot, but the human should be there, superseding the bot, and you can use it as a tool. You imagine that you're checking a customer and say, okay, could you give me the transactions of the last 3 months? Could you explain me the indicators of harm? Okay, you have the artificial intelligence, that is crunching things for you in real time. And then, if the customer require a more advanced interaction, it can be a human artificial intelligence combined interaction. I think this is something that, like, again, like the robots in a factory. Okay, you need somebody, making sure that the robots that they're making a car, they're not stuck. Okay, they're working fine. Okay, there's a problem. Let's see how we can sort it out.
Yeah, similar principle, I guess. It's going to be really fascinating to see how that plays out, I guess, in the next few years. But we're coming close to the end of our discussion, unfortunately, and we've covered a lot of ground. But to kind of conclude, do you think that we're going to see more B2B companies like EveryMatrix and others coming forward and really pushing the sort of safer gambling boundaries? And if so, what would you want them to do? Susanna?
Yeah, I certainly hope so, that B2B companies, regulators, organizations, operators, we really need to discuss and collaborate. The topic is so complex, and everybody needs to work towards the same goal. And it's really not a competition. It's because we can't solve the problem unless we collaborate. So I really hope so that everybody will be involved.
Thank you. Duncan?
I think there'll be some who will be hesitant about coming forward. I think there'll be some who do not believe this is for them, for whatever reason. Some people may think it could affect their profit margins by doing too much work for other people. Personally, I think if everyone actually joins together and collaborates, we make it safer. If we make it safer, that can only increase profits and certainly decrease losses, put it that way. It would be good to do it without regulatory. So it would be good to do it off people's backs without being forced by regulation to do it. I think it's quite nice to see that. So I would hope people will come through, but I don't believe everyone will at the beginning. Maybe people will come in when they see a few people who are actually out there saying what they do, who they are, educating. Maybe more people will realise that there is benefit in communicating and collaborating.
And certainly if it's going to affect their bottom lines, right? If they know that if they don't come out and adhere to kind of any safer gambling measures, then that might hit their profits. That could certainly push them in the right direction. And there does seem to be some changes, as you were saying, Susanna, in terms of European regulation, right? And safer gambling being sort of built into more sustainability measures and sustainability rules and ESG rules. Pedro, how about you? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think this is like, the eternal story of safer gambling. At the beginning was with operators. There were a few ones that they were forthcoming. There were other ones that, they, didn't want to engage. And at the end, most of the operators that, work in regulated markets, they have to heavily focus on safer gambling. There's others that is okay. We just focus on the gray or black markets. I think the same is going to happen with B2B companies. Okay, there's going to be the tip of the spear that they're going to say, yeah, we need to do this, and the sooner the better, because it ultimately will be good for business. And there'll be other that they say, look, this is not for us. We just want the profit on the short term, and I don't care what's happened with the company in 2-3 years or whatever.
Yeah. And Jake, I'll give you the last word on this.
Thank you. I mean, safer gambling is quite a recent trend. I recall when I entered the industry 9 years ago, it was practically unheard of. I mean, we used to call it responsible gaming, and that's it. Now we're moving towards safer gambling, which is an evolution of the trend. I would say most B2Bs are still at the early stages of adopting initiatives in relation to safer gambling. So I would expect there's lots of room for growth in this space to have B2Bs being there and also pushing safer gambling agendas. It could also be for B2Bs who have profit as their main driver, that it could be a way to differentiate across other B2Bs, get ahead of the curve, and market themselves as champions of the safer gambling space in the industry. So, as Duncan was saying, I mean, it's a very good thing. If you don't do it for your players, at least do it for yourself. That's what my closing argument is. And through that, you get better yourself, get better profits yourself, but also at least players are playing in a better environment as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a business, EveryMatrix, we're looking to do far more, aren't we, in the next few years?
100%. We're going to invest much more than we already did.
Can you give us a sneak peek before we leave?
I can't, but Pedro is aware of it.
Yeah, so we've got lots of plans, and I think the points that Duncan, Susanna, and Pedro and yourself were making about more B2B companies actually talking to each other about this, maybe instead of just talking about commercials all the time, would certainly be a good start. So thank you very much to all of you for joining today as part of Safer Gambling Week, and I'm very pleased you could join us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.